In Chapter 3, Part 1, we are talking about simplifying solving exponents. And this is a very beginning, basic step. And we're going to take a look at Example 2, which is on page 1 of the new Chapter 3 packet. So the first example they have in number 2 is the original form, which says that we have 5 squared times 5 to the 5th power. What we're going to do is we're going to write that out in the factored form. When you hear the word factored, that means breaking it down as simple as possible. So 5 squared just means we have 5 times 5. 5 to the 5th means we have 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So we have 2 5s here for our 5 squared, 5 5s here for our 5 to the 5th power. That's our factored form. Simplified exponential form, we're going to take those 5s, and we have 7 of them. So now it's 5 to the 7th power. So you're adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's how you get the exponent of 7. Okay. So let's take a look at another example. Draw a line here. Let's say we have 3 cubed times 3 squared times 3. So in the factored form, I'm going to have 3 times 3 times 3 for my 3 cubed, 3 times 3 for my 3 squared, and a 3 for my 3 that's by itself. So altogether, I have 6 3s, so it's 3 to the 6th power. Let's take a look at some variables. Let's do the x cubed times x to the 5th. So again, I have x times x times x, x times x times x times x times x. Altogether, I have 8 x's, x to the 8th power. Now let's put in a mix. Let's do x cubed y squared times x times y squared. So when I go through, I'm going to have my x 3 times, my y 2 times, a single x, and then another y times y. So I'm looking at my exponents to tell me how many I should have in the parentheses. So my x's, altogether I have 4 of them, so x to the 4th, and I also have 4 y's. That's going to be y to the 4th power. So you are taking the original form, you're factoring it out, you're writing it out, and then you're simplifying it. This is, again, example 2 on page 1. Example 11 on page 4, we're going to do the same kind of idea, but now we are going to do some division. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, which is 2 to the 4th power divided by 2 squared. So when I go to factor this out, I'm going to have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 in the numerator and a 2 times 2 in the denominator. So what happens when we're multiplying and dividing in the factored form, if anything is the same on the top and the bottom of the fraction, that can be canceled out. Back in the middle school, if you were at Central York School District, they talked about the giant 1. So you could think about it that way. We have 2 giant 1s, but in the end, they're going to go away, and we're left with 2 squared because we have 2 2's left over. Let's take a look at another example. We have 3 to the 4th over 3 to the 5th power. So I have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 in the numerator, and then 5 3's in the denominator. Again, I'm going to see what can cancel out, what's the same on the top and the bottom. And notice now that there's nothing on the top. So what happens is that becomes a 1, and then I have a single 3 left over in the denominator. So we have 1 over 3. Now, what if they're the same? So say we have 7 cubed over 7 cubed. So that's 7 times 7 times 7 over 7 times 7 times 7. So if we do the giant 1 or we simplify, all of them cancel out, and you are left with the number 1. Okay, so if we continue the chart, I'm again looking at number 11 on page 4. I'm going to take a look at the 4x cubed over 8x squared. So when we go to write this out, we'll have 4xxx over 8xx. Again, we want to cancel out any variables, so we're left with an x in the numerator. Now this 4 divided by 8, we are going to do that division. So think about 4 divided by 8. How can we rewrite that as a simplified fraction? We can divide both of them by 4 to get 1/2 x. Or you could write this as 1x over 2. Okay, let's look at two more. X cubed y squared over xy squared. Again, I'm going to factor it out. So I have 3 x's and 2 y's on the top, an x and 2 y's on the bottom. Cancel out anything that's on the top and the bottom. So I have 2 x's in the top. Everything else is gone. So we are left with x squared. The final problem, x cubed y over x to the 5th y to the 5th. Same idea, write out my x's and my y. Same thing in the denominator. And now we're going to cross out anything that's on the top and the bottom. So I have 2 x's on the bottom, 4 y's on the bottom, but nothing in the top. So the top of the fraction becomes a 1, and we have x squared y to the 4th left over in the denominator.